Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name's Chris Fletcher and I'm your host. Tech on Toast exists to connect hospitality to technology. Search for your best problem-solving tech on our marketplace, listen to both operators and tech experts on our podcast, or just meet up with the brilliant people who are helping innovate the hospitality industry as we enter a new era. Welcome to Tech on Toast. The Tech on Toast podcast is brought to you today by Point One. Point One offers the complete EPOS system for your hospitality business. From mobile order and pay and self-serve kiosks to restaurant and kitchen management, Point One has the solution. Head over to their website today to find out more and get in touch with their experienced team. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, guys, to the next episode of the Tech on Toast podcast. And this week, I'm very excited to be joined by some, can I say fellow Bristolians, or is that not the case anymore?
Yeah, I guess loosely, yeah.
Okay, we'll claim that. We're all from the West-ish. So I'm joined with the founders from Zedible. We've got Ed Brown and Griff Holland. Guys, how are you?
Yeah, feeling good.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, they've turned up with beer, which actually serves well for this podcast. So it's good. Yeah, all right. So yeah, it's going to go well. So look, before we even get into this, I was just asking this question off air. Tell me a little bit about you guys, where you're from. So should we start with you, Ed?
Yeah, mine's pretty vanilla compared to
really?
Griff's. Yeah, born in Bristol and
So you are a Bristolian?
Yeah, I'm Bristolian.
So we were
I just didn't pick up the heavy accent, that's all.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
and straight into, because you have also ran another business, which I'm sure we'll chat about in a minute.
Yeah. So before Griff and I started working together, which was in Frisca, I studied economics at university, and then I worked as an economist actually for about 18 months. Tried my hand at a tech business back then. This was like 2008, 2007, 2008. Didn't get anywhere, but I did start going to networking events, and that's where Griff and I met and started a food business. So slightly potted history, but yeah, economist by background, I guess. And
how long have you been friends, Griff, now? Well, I say friends, like known each other.
Yeah, no, I think you can say friends. I think we're friends, aren't we?
Do you want to put words in your mouth?
So we met in 2008. As Ed said, we met at a business networking event because that's what we did as sort of young bucks in Bristol. Ed was doing his thing. I was trying to get this cafe idea of mine off the ground. And we met at an event. Our eyes met across an auditorium, and we've basically been sort of professionally inseparable ever since.
And you know what? You just met Kieran on the way in, and me and Kieran, a similar relationship. We've been working together for a long time now, on and off. And it's quite. I love having someone else to bounce stuff up. Do you find it the same? There's not many duos I speak to in the podcast room actually, but when I do, there seems to be a very cool link. Do you find that really helps in business?
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, we both do different things. We bring different things to the party, and so from a business perspective, the businesses we've worked in are stronger because of our partnership. I believe, I hope, and professionally, yeah, man, it's a rock, it's someone that you can rely on to be there and turn up along with you, and sometimes when you've got other things going on in life that you can sort of depend on personally. So no, it's amazing. And I know that business history is scattered with partnerships that haven't worked, but I personally couldn't imagine not doing it as a partnership.
I suppose you have to say the same. Otherwise he's going to be sad.
I agree.
Whatever he said.
It's so much more fun. The highs, I think, doing anything like, Chris, doing anything on your own, the highs can be really high, the lows can be really low.
Yeah.
Having someone else there that's in exactly the same situation is just the best thing. Makes everything so much more fun, and you feel you can achieve so much more together, I think, as a.
And it's unique, right, isn't it? Because it is a unique experience. Startups are very much, you said, highs and lows.
Yeah.
And not many other people understand, do they? As in, if they're not doing... Even your startup compared to a startup next door, there are very nuances, aren't there, that you actually deal with every day. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Zedible. And we should mention Frisca, because I was a Frisca fan. So, you guys were in charge of Frisca. And how long ago? 5 years ago?
More. 2009 we opened. Wow. 15th of October 2009 we opened.
So my kids, they would go, wow, Dad, that's really old. Yeah. 2009. And Frisca was a great business. Just tell people what it was.
Yeah, so basically it was a sort of a sustainably minded, quick service restaurant chain. Great coffee, great food, breakfast and lunchtime, basically to office workers. We opened a bunch in Bristol. We built a pretty good reputation, and we, on the back of that, managed to raise some money to open a bunch more stores in other sites. I guess the sort of strength and focus of our business pre-COVID became our ultimate downfall during COVID, because when everyone, when the boardroom became the bedroom, we were buggered, basically. Yeah. When everyone started working from home, our customers evaporated. And so that was sort of the end of that first chapter. But absolutely, we wouldn't be doing chapter 2 had we not done chapter 1. So
I think that's absolutely crucial. And I read a lot of books, startup books. I'm sad. I should probably find more stuff. Probably talk to my kids occasionally, that'd be better. But there's a lot of that. They're littered with stories, aren't they, prior to the successful one. I think actually Christian from Tenzo said to me the other week, the company that tries the most will do the best. He said the more things you fail on, the more things you mess up, as long as you're learning and keep going, you'll find one that sticks and it works. And it's been great. Is the same experience for you guys?
Frisker being the first main thing that we did, when you have a second go, everything does feel so much more easy. Like, there are challenges, obviously, but you just know what you're doing that much more. And yeah, it's that experience, that life experience that you bring into it.
You're a bit braver, do you think? This time round, does it feel like, because we'll get into it now, but I think
maybe a bit more focused, I think, is to know what matters and what doesn't matter, and just sort of ignore the stuff that doesn't matter. I think particularly when you do it first time round, and we were, 23 or so when we started Frisker, you just don't have that level of experience. And I know some people are amazingly successful with their first business, but I just feel that extra, a few war stories and a few, things that you can look back on help you make better decisions in the next thing.
Sure, I agree. And as I said, we're here to talk about Zedible today. So give us your best pitch. Tell us about Zedible. What does it do?
Well, just before we do that, shall we give you a bit of backstory as to how on earth we realised there was a big problem in the first instance?
Let's start with that.
A bit of context. So we've touched on Frisker. I've sort of mentioned that we were doing a lot on sustainability and building an ethical business. It's quite interesting to kind of understand how that sort of sustainability narrative developed over the first 10 years of Frisker. So it started off, if you were free-range chicken, you were sustainable. Then it became, how many bins have you got on site, i.e. can you do zero waste to landfill? Then it was all around green energy. Then around the mid-2015s, it was all around plastic.
Yeah.
And if you had plastic in the house, you were condemning the world to annihilation. And interestingly, it was only in 2018 that I remember attending an event where carbon was specifically on the agenda, which is an interesting observation given that climate change has been talked about and has been an issue for a long, since before then. 2020 happens, COVID, all bets are off, and sustainability just means, are you going to be here tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a year later, we were coming out of COVID, and we noticed that, so it coincided with COP26. And I think it was a point in time where the world had been through the ringer. Those that made it out the other side felt relieved. COP26 brought into sharp focus the next big challenge for the world. And the hospitality sector and the broader food sort of industry, I think, thought, well, we can either be the bad guys in this, or we can be a force for change and part of the solution. Now, Ed and I could see almost on a daily basis in Propel another hospitality business, another restaurant chain, another contract caterer saying, we're going to go to net zero, we're going to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And we had a hunch that no one knew where they were starting that journey from, and no one had a map to get them there. The context being that in food, the carbon is on the plate. It is the food. And understanding at an ingredient level what is driving your carbon in your business is fundamental to being able to map, track, and navigate towards wherever you want to get to. And so that was the problem that we could see was there. And as operators, we felt there really wasn't a solution out there for us if we were navigating anywhere to meet that problem.
And I love it. And actually, you talk about, we'll get into the product in a minute, but you talk about like for like, and it's a really common phrase in the industry, right? If you've ever worked in the industry, your whole life is judged on like for like sales. Will you live or die by them? And actually, you're right. There is no starting point, is it? There is no needle. Because where do you start? At Carluccio's, we used to have a one napkin rule. That was our commitment, and we were part of the Sustainable Restaurant Association, and we were kind of a leader in that at the time. This is 15 years ago. But one napkin, that was our measurement.
And that is classic example I can guarantee you that at Carluccio's, the napkins would not be driving the carbon. All right? I will bet you a pint of beer that the napkins were not driving the carbon. Now, you could say that it's just a cynical attempt to do something that sounds and looks good. Or you could say, actually, people are pinning their hopes on a napkin or a bloody straw or a paper cup because they fundamentally don't know what's actually driving carbon at an ingredient level.
And this is my point, actually, about this subject. I am not educated enough to understand. So COP26, I won't lie to you. I went, as soon as I spoke to you, Ed, I went off that call and went and did some research around it, understood. I've heard of it. I knew what it was. But actually what came out of it, the regulations that came out of it, I didn't understand. And you've got to think in an industry that are time poor, that are surviving, not thriving right now, that actually, is that understanding really there? And so I think there's a big education piece, isn't there, around your product as well, actually, about teaching people just that pure nature of saying, you're at this point and we can get you to this point, but this is what you need to do in the middle.
Simply, it's a carbon software platform that helps show operators how they can help save the planet and save cost by looking at the purchasing from a carbon and commercial perspective. We come at it from a pragmatic perspective, from an operator's perspective, this sort of challenge. So it's all around protecting revenue, protecting margin, and protecting the customer experience. And that's what our product is designed to do, to try and show actually there are a lot of myths out there that it's always going to cost you a load of money. It's always a binary choice between vegan and meat eater. But it can be much more simple than that, and it can genuinely save money. You can genuinely move the dial significantly without it being a really painful experience. I mean, we are still operators. We run a small 2-site business these days based Frisca called Double Puck. We've made a 15% reduction in our CO2 in the past 6 months. Hasn't impacted revenues, hasn't impacted margins, hasn't impacted the customer experience. But just having that starting point and then being really logically able to say, well, let's try that, see the impact. Let's try that, let's see the impact. You can move the dial massively.
And also another key point is that you're looking at carbon and carbon intensity in the same way that you're looking at your P&L, i.e. on a monthly basis.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah?
When you talk about reduction, you're talking about averting basically CO2 from the atmosphere, right? I think you called it, conscious consumerism, which we used to talk about Prime Minister, actually, funnily enough, quite a lot, because they've got a certain audience born out of Bristol, which is a great city that really do believe actually in looking after the planet. Same as Brighton, I would say, and those kind of cities in the UK. But do you think everyone's along for the ride yet? How much work do you think you have to do to bring these people along?
I think it's funny. So I think if you look at, particularly the bigger players in hospitality, I'd say the board will all be making statements and have intent.
Yes.
I think the guys at the restaurant level, at the floor level, will probably be pretty engaged with it. I was speaking to a pub operator, and they banned plastic straws a couple of years ago, and the big driver was the engagement from the guys on the ground. So I think you've got they care about it. The guys at the top are aware of it and want to do something. But I think that your point around time poor ops managers are probably going to be the ones that are going to help deliver on this. And so what we need to be able to show is that if you can get the buy-in for someone to say, you say, yes, try this, we're going to try this approach, we're going to try this innovative way of looking at it, that it isn't this big laborious exercise, and you can make these incremental gains that can have really big impact. Because what we do is essentially take that purchasing data on a month-by-month basis, we put it through an algorithm and present that back, so you know where your material impact is. You know that materiality of product by product, what you care about and what you don't. So if you are an ops level person, you can say, right, it's going to be, for our business, it's coffee, milk and cheese, right?
Yeah.
I'd have never have guessed that in a million years. I'd have thought it'd be chicken, bacon and sausages, right?
Yeah, because that's what you're trained almost to understand, I suppose,
Yeah,
with the news.
yeah. But that materiality based on how many kilos of that product we're buying and the carbon of each kilo of that product, that's what it comes out as. And so you have this roadmap to focus on. So I think it's just about breaking down the barriers, that it doesn't have to be this big, painful, expensive exercise. Perfection doesn't exist. Starting is where you need to start and get that measurement, and then you can do a lot.
And I think your product looks like everyone's dashboards, right? As in, you've got it's a great SaaS product. When you look at you sent me a fly through, which I've put on the marketplace. You can go and check them out. If you check out Zedible's page, you'll see there Ed does a little talk through actually the platform, and it is what you see day to day, right? These are operational tools, and this is where people need to understand. Actually, this is a thing to sit alongside your food cost, your labour cost, anything else you're managing in the business. And COP26, let me take you back there again. I really do. You think boardrooms understand the regulations and the results that came out of that?
So where the regs are at the moment, only the very largest companies are sort of forced to really do something about this. So if you're a listed hospitality business on, London Stock Exchange or AIM or whatever, then you've got the TCFD, which is Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. It's a reporting obligation to show what's the financial risk of carbon on your business. Basically, it's a reporting obligation. Now, there are loads of companies that aren't listed. Most hospitality are not listed, right?
Yeah.
But I guess there's a view of the world of that. Where's the direction of travel? Our view is that this is going to get more important, and certainly the customer thinks about this.
Yeah.
So, should you not change the way that you think about this at the board level in particular? Should you not have part of your board pack that you look at month by month, like you look at all your margins and labour KPIs and everything like that, where carbon has a piece? What would your EBITDA look like if you had to adjust for the cost of carbon? And the true cost of carbon that is put on is $100 a tonne. And so that is, I guess it's a shift in mindset. It's trying to embed it at the very top of the business as a risk that may be on the horizon. It's not forcing you to offset, because I don't think that's the right way to go about things. It should be understand the matter and then figure out if that forms part of your strategy.
And it's often about language, right? Isn't it? I always think that language matters when you're trying to embed something in operations. You talk about KPIs, you talk about food cost, labour cost, those like for like, those phrases that you hear a lot. And I think it's really important that this needs to sit in someone's day-to-day operations where actually it makes sense and that language matters and it becomes a used term. And I think getting people to actually conform to a KPI around carbon and actually get them to understand, and imagine having that in their daily conversations, going around in their cars, their area managers, or going around on their travel. But that's not a good example, isn't it? Driving around their cars. But it's reality, right? That's how they do work.
It's like, when all the noise out there, all the customers, staff are saying this is a big deal, and climate change has really accelerated it. I think everyone sort of feels in the last 2 years in particular, it really,
it's everywhere, right?
It's everywhere, right? Yeah. But the approach at the moment is still do a report that's 12 months, what happened last 12 months ago, sits in Google Drive or wherever, and gets looked at probably one board meeting a year.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you don't use...
And give customers one napkin.
You don't look at...
There was more than that. That was the one that stuck.
I don't know how many companies use their sort of year-end accounts to run the business going forward, right?
Yeah.
That is just the sum of what's happened.
The backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards looking.
Yeah.
So our view is it's important, customers care about it, staff, team care about it, treat it like something that you can manage, which you can with the right tool. You can make big changes if you take this different approach.
I run another company called Atolo, and we work on retention within the industry. We provide mentoring and whatnot. And actually, when we're speaking to a lot of Generation Z, whatever you want to call these guys, but they care. And I actually think it's an employer value thing as well. That when people are looking at work and looking where they want to go and work, that they're making decisions with their feet based on your values and not your, based on employers' values.
Yeah.
And I think we treated that with a bit of a. Kind of like, oh yeah, well we've did our statement. We did that last year. We've said we really care, and we've got our one napkin. So we're doing the right thing. But I actually think these kids are really going to make a difference, or if not already making a difference in the way that employees are behaving. What do you think, Griff?
I completely agree. I mean, I don't think it's just sort of a talent attraction and retention strategy though. Because I mean, if you look at Patagonia or Allbirds, for example. Patagonia's not a listed company, but good God, is it a valuable company? Yes. Allbirds listed company. If you look at the brands that Unilever buy, they are values-led businesses that can command serious, multiples on the exit.
Yeah.
And the fundamental sort of values that underpin those are conscientious consumerism. We should all care about where the world's going. And if there's iceberg on the horizon. We're in the Titanic. We can get to America if we just kind of dial off course a little bit and get around the iceberg. Close our eyes to it, we're buggered and we're going down. So, I mean, I don't want to be sort of scaremongering because that iceberg is, I don't know how far away that iceberg is right now. But absolutely, you know, businesses can navigate that journey towards where they want to get to, attract engaged members of the team, connect better with their customers, and just grow a better business, full stop.
And you're right, it's not attraction, is it? It's just should be done. I think I was doing exactly what has been done for the last 20 years, potentially. Putting it in a box, saying, look, if we say this, more people will want to work for us because they care too. So actually, it shouldn't be that. It should just be a done thing. It should be part of our...
Both.
Yeah,
it's
part of
both.
our nature.
There is a business sort of sense and strategy, tactics around being this kind of business because it delivers this kind of result. But also, we don't want to hit the iceberg.
No. God, no. And I do. And I genuinely look at my three children. I think I've got 7 sometimes, but I've only got 3. I checked this morning. And I look at them and what they care about and what they learn about in school, actually, the curriculum. And, you know, you can say what you want about... they go to Welsh school, so I haven't got a clue what they're talking about most of the time. But they're really invested in, actually, our future as well, not just theirs. So it's a huge deal, and I think it's interesting, exciting, scary. I don't know where you want which box you want to put in. Probably all
It's
three.
everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And yes, you know, the headlines are scary, but you know, as small-time operators now with our little cafe, we take a tremendous amount of pride in seeing the carbon that we've averted through changes which haven't cost money in terms of supply. Again, that's another myth that needs busting, that there is a green premium associated with being good.
Yeah.
Actually, there quite often isn't. And quite often you can save money and save the planet at the same time, right?
And on your platform, I can basically look at, I'm going to use eggs as an example. I can look at eggs from supplier X, and that's costing me X amount in CO2. And then I can look at supplier Y, for instance, on the same product, but I might make a saving or avert more CO2. Is that the right way?
Yeah, so we've just launched a feature called the Sandbox where you can do that. You can see, first off, you'll have your products, which will be by all of your wholesale suppliers.
Right.
And then we're building up this database of suppliers. So the key thing is, you know, materiality, I would always say.
Yes.
So if eggs are not important because you know, like we sell a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
But it's not in our top 100, right? We sell a lot of carrots, not in our top 100. So if it's important to you from a material perspective, then you're like, right, okay, is there a product-to-product substitution we can make here? You know, how much can we play around with? So take beef mince is a great example because you can look at blending, loads of ways that you can reduce margin and carbon quite significantly. If it's a supply A for supply B, then it's, you know, looking in that sandbox and saying, okay, yes, let's look at this different egg supply because it has a lower carbon because of the way that they operate. So that's what we want to try and build in. And so we're not there yet in terms of getting this big sort of database. So supply products and I guess articulating the things they're doing, which are there to help the environment. So it's putting EV, you know, running EV vehicles, PV on the roof, wind, whatever it might be, and saying, okay, that egg supplier is doing all of those things, so therefore each egg you buy from that supplier is better than that. That's where we're getting to. But the first part of understanding the products and the generic products that you can start to switch out is what we've got in our sandbox now.
So what you've done is made a classic mistake that lots of people do.
It's a daily thing for me.
Is zero in onto egg A versus egg B.
Yeah.
Our approach is you don't even know that eggs matter, right? At the moment, you are blind as to what's driving carbon in your business. So for the first instance, understand what matters to you at a generic level, right? Once you've understood what matters to you as a business, you can make significant changes to your carbon intensity still working at a generic level. So for us at Double Puck, the biggest driver of carbon was full fat milk. Without spending lots of time and money finding out dairy A versus dairy B versus dairy C, through our platform, we could see that if we went from full fat milk to semi-skimmed, we could save 22 or 23% of the carbon on our biggest driver with zero impact on margin.
And
the next step is this going to impact the customer? So we all tried a flat white with semi and a flat white with full fat. I got them the wrong way round. I'm the acid test.
Straw poll of
Let's go.
Change it.
So we reduced the biggest driver of carbon in January in a cost neutral way, which in no way affected the customer experience. And we drove down carbon intensity significantly. So before you get to egg A versus egg B, figure out what matters to you. Once you understand what matters to you, make changes at a generic level. And then when you're almost at your destination, that's when you can start figuring out supplier A or supplier B.
And are you quite consultative? It's a bit of a dangerous question because I would want you to, so if a customer comes on board and they need help, right? Because some people will get it straight away and jump 2 feet in, some people won't. How much do you guys get involved in the, I suppose, holding hands a little bit at the start?
Yeah, for sure, we do, don't we?
Yeah, and particularly at this early stage, where we've got a handful of customers, we're trying to obviously grow and
Yeah, because you're learning as well, right?
Learning that's a big part of it. It's because it's quite a different approach, and I think this is what we're trying to ourselves try and inform and help our clients, prospective clients, sort of look at the way that we look at the world, and so that very forms part of it for sure.
And are you surprised what you're seeing from suppliers? So when you're talking to, surprised probably not the right word, but when you're looking at a supplier, your expectations are something, like in terms of how they're bringing product to market. Are you pleasantly surprised at the moment, or is it as you expected in terms of how suppliers are bringing product into manufacturing anyway?
I mean, I would say I've been really surprised and am therefore feeling even more confident about the Zedible proposition. Because we're sort of pretty new. We're 5 months old, as it were, in the sort of climate tech space. But in that time, we have, for universities, contract catering company, stadium client, we have really shown how they can make material impacts on their carbon intensity and grow their margin. And that and the extent to which those changes are happening and operators can really move the dial has been surprising, actually. It's so easy to sort of it's a complicated topic, right?
Yeah.
It is. But if you are so bogged down in all the complications and all the intricacies, you never start.
Yeah.
And so what Zedible does is it kind of says, here's where you are, here's a map, crack on. We obviously help with that, and it's amazing to see how you can crack on and how you can move that dial. So one of the customers, without naming names, was they had restaurants and some B&I, business and industry catering. Their client said, we want you to help us achieve our net zero goals. And we helped them do that, and we showed them how they can significantly reduce carbon intensity and grow margin.
I guess you get small wins quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that, when we be looking at, there might be 1,000 products, it could be even, 3,000 different SKUs. You can pick 5 and see massive CO2 wins, massive cost of sale wins. Like, we can show an ROI from using the platform.
I was going to say, because half the time, right, with anything, ROI, I mean, I get, with what we do with mentoring, trying to prove ROI on mentoring is bloody hard, right? Because how do I know Ed went from here to here, because he said he's really happy now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really quantify as an ROI.
I think it's always a surprise when people think that you can actually save money.
Yeah.
You can actually save money.
I genuinely did not, I mean, that's probably my ignorance, but I did not realize, when I started going through the site and looking at it and understanding the walkthrough, I was shocked. And I think that a lot of people listening in and a lot of people who get to trial it, which we'll talk about at the end, will be shocked too, right? And it's that impact is huge.
I think the other thing is and in fact there was some legislation that came out in Europe. It was announced yesterday, EU, and I think UK's following suit shortly around this whole idea of greenwashing. And there's loads of talk about greenwashing, but essentially where it applies to food hospitality is when people are making claims like, this is a carbon negative condiment or this is a carbon negative sandwich or whatever. It's like, and they've got there by offsetting, that is going to be banned. And I think quite right, because there is so much, that's the really lazy approach. That
I think it's why people struggle with it. I think it's why people struggle with the subject, because disingenuous, like anything in life, disingenuous actions lead people to think of, it actually becomes eye-rolling.
You just become cynical too.
Yeah, people just like, oh God, be quiet, stop talking. And it's just, and I was in a restaurant not 2 nights ago, they had a menu which claimed to be, I'm not going going to say, or carbon neutral all over it.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
dish.
So that's nonsense. But we haven't really touched on carbon labelling. Our approach is to put the power to move the dial in the operator's hands.
That's what's so powerful about it.
Well, frankly, hospitality is not about saving the world. It's about going out, enjoying nice food, having a nice drink with people you hopefully like.
You just described my life.
That is the fundamental driver of hospitality.
Yeah.
Okay. So our view is don't complicate that experience, don't diminish that experience by frankly making the customer feel bad about buying what they want to buy, right?
Yeah, we'll drive this dish up by calling it, oh my God, it's
Well,
terrible.
exactly.
Yeah.
Basically, by putting carbon labels on things in menus, yes, you are educating the masses, but how many of these guys are going to be educated after 4 pints?
Speaking to two of them now.
Well, there you go. So it's like, as operators, you absolutely have the power to move the dial. Your fundamental reason for being is delivering a wonderful customer experience.
Yeah.
And you can do that whilst moving the dial. And we take Patagonia as an example, right? We did a piece that, I don't know, a handful of people read on LinkedIn. In Patagonia, we trust.
Yeah.
So should you buy from Patagonia, you trust them to make the right decisions. And they align with your conscious consumerism and your values, etc.
Yeah.
You don't decide, am I going to buy a T-shirt, a fleece, or a puffer jacket based on the respective carbon labels of said garments.
Yeah.
They will all be different. They all serve a different function. They all appeal to different people. But in Patagonia, you trust to make the right decision for you and for the planet. And that, and therefore you don't feel bad if you're buying a Gore-Tex waterproof puffer jacket because it's
you know they're
20
doing the right
times
thing.
worse
Yeah.
than a T-shirt. Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's got a lot more material. It's a different thing. Just like, a grilled mushroom is different to a steak. But it's dangerous because you're giving customers, you're basically saying, don't buy me. And with the exception of cigarettes, I can't think of many products that explicitly say, don't buy me. You will die, but actually in carbon labelling, don't buy me because you will kill everyone else as well.
Actually, that's not great. That's not great marketing. All the marketeers like, shit, cancel that email.
Man. Exactly, man. So basically, do you want to put don't buy me on your products? No. Is it actually also going to materially affect the outcomes of your business? I would say questionable, right?
Yeah.
Because if you've gone out for a burger and chips at Brewdog, that's what you're buying. And it might have a red thing on it. You're going to feel worse about buying it, but you're still going to buy the bloody
course you
burger
are.
and chips.
Yeah.
Whereas our approach is if the people that are deciding ingredients, blends, sourcing can make the right decision for you, then you can just come here, have a nice burger and get blottoed.
I
think they've got that on their website.
I think it's I also think it's quite dangerous when you get an announcement from a brand and operator that will say, our new menu's X% vegan and vegetarian now. As we all know, when you're trying to report like-for-like sales to a board, there are many ways you can cut those to make things look better. Trading days was often one that we used.
Spoken as two operators there.
Yes. Yeah.
Weather adjusted now. Anyway, so you
That's
need...
a thing. I won't have that. That's a weather
That's
adjustment.
one thing,
It's
man.
real.
We dropped that and over
Snow is bad.
And it was well received as well.
You need to look at, what is the aggregate impact? So, sales mix, seasonality, and volume growth in terms of outlets. And then what's the impact? And it might be great, but it's a dangerous message to, I think, to go out to the consumer because I think you could well get some flack. People are like, well, yeah, but if everyone's still ordering those dishes, it's entirely irrelevant. You need to know what is the impact from doing that. And that's the only way to look at it.
And you're managing it in the supply chain, right? You're managing it from boardroom and back, as it would be back down the supply chain, which is the right way to do it because you're right, making those decisions are taken away from marketing, brand activation, operators. It's actually already happening prior to them, and as you say, it's on the plate, right? It's in the coffee cup.
It's on the plate, but then you can celebrate the wins by talking to your customers about how many round-the-world tickets you've averted, and they didn't even realise, the impact you've actually delivered and you know, and celebrating those wins.
And what was your stat? 52 trips from John O'Groats to Land's
Oh
End.
crikey! Yeah, I mean it was. I think it was 58, and this is for a
Yeah, I
tiny
might be
little.
misquoting you, but
No, you're right, man. It was. I think it was 58 round trips from John O'Groats to Land's End that we did in like 3.5-4 months.
they didn't actually do it. This is the
No.
It's who you're reverting. You wonder why they're.
Exactly.
We were busy. We were driving, man.
That's much better than getting the customer to decide to make the right or the wrong choice, right? We've done that. They've got us there.
Well, that storytelling, and sorry, I shouldn't say storytelling because it sounds like it's not true, but that kind of brand awareness, and you talked about Patagonia, and people like, Prime Minister, and they've just gone B Corp, all these kind of guys that are actually trying to do the right thing, and often in the face of, people will say in the face of profit, but it's not the case, is it? Because you can, as you're saying, you can impact profit in a positive way. It's not just about, we're doing this because we're good people making right decisions because it's the right thing to do. We might not make a lot of money, but this is the way it is.
It needs to pay as well, man.
Yeah.
It needs to pay. You can pat yourself on the back as you go into another administration, or you can drive change and grow a profitable business. And we've, one of our businesses gone into administration. We don't want to do that again.
Done that.
It's no fun. It's no fun, and it doesn't drive change.
Well, it's driven this.
Yeah, I guess so. Here's to administration. Oh shit, I'm
cheers.
empty.
And if you could, so one of the things me and Ed talked about was making a KPI. And if you could flick a switch tomorrow, right, and you could, and everybody had this KPI in their businesses, so they had food cost, labour. What are we going to call it? We're calling it Zedible. We're going to go to carbon KPI, whatever you want to call it. Where's it going to land with? Who do you think? I think we might have covered this. So with the operators and the people on the ground versus the boardroom and the area and regional directors, where do you think where's the play going to be hardest to get these people to engage with that KPI and really start driving it through the business?
I would say the blocker, the bottleneck comes with a person that's actually got to make that call.
Yeah.
Put it on the line to say, this is going to be our approach to deliver that strategy and turn on this customer base, employee base, etc. Because then it's on you. You're putting it on the line and saying, "Let's go."
Yeah.
All right. You're changing course. So I think that's where the bottleneck comes. That's where the bravery is required. And our platform is a pretty new approach to navigating towards a better future, frankly, and delivering that big strategy. So, I mean, that's, I'd say, where the bottleneck feels like it's coming from at the moment.
But it's perceived as such a hard task that it's easier to say.
I think a new industry, right? And I'm not forgetting all the people that already exist, but it would be awesome, right? Not just from a planetary point of view, but just we're such an old business. And the way we're run still, like for food cost, labour cost, all this. And I know there's lots of tech, which is why I do this, that's helping automate that and adjust it. But why can't we have a new way of measuring things? Why can't we change what's been done for the last 100 years in terms of the way we manage our hospitality business? And why can't we have a wider impact? Because everyone talks about how important this industry was during the pandemic and how much you can do for everybody, from mental health to to actually making some money. So I think it's ready for some adjustments and some change. So I for one, I'll take it as a KPI, boys. I'll have the platform live with me. I'll do it. And what about awareness and adoption? Because obviously you're brand new-ish. You've joined the marketplace, which is great, and we'll try and get you as much help as we can, as many eyeballs as we can on you guys. But where is your bottleneck, I suppose, in terms of getting the word out and really getting eyeballs on it and getting boots on the ground, as it would be, and getting people using Zedible?
Yeah, I think it's that thing that we spoke about, I guess, where you've got a new way of doing things. So historically, it's been carbon accounting, which is what's your spend, and we'll convert that roughly into carbon.
Yeah.
Which is great for a report. Doesn't give you much insight.
No.
Really any, but it's good for a report. It's quick. Or this carbon labelling approach. And I think that we're fighting these two, I guess, prevailing. I mean, they've both not been around that long, but that we're coming in the middle of the two, I guess, is how we look at it. So it's trying to get space and for people to, I guess, see the nuance of our approach versus those two other ways. And that's hard because people are busy, right?
Yeah. That was my point, I suppose, that they're focused on revenue, they're focused on bottom line. But this affects bottom line. And they're focused on people. I think people is probably I suppose, the single biggest driver. At Atolla, that's all we talk about, retention and turnover and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm going to make I'm going to make an analogy with.
I think you're saying make an announcement. I was like, okay.
A small little company formerly called Facebook, now called Meta. So we're basically at the stage where Zuck and his crew have just finished coding the Facebook.
I love this. I'm picturing my
and they're kind of testing it amongst their pals, and they've just launched it at Harvard. And we've just launched it at our Harvard, which is basically our connections in the sector and introducing it to people that we know and trust and in turn trust us. But give us a year and yeah.
I love it. Are you to the rowing?
We'll be away.
Are you the rowing guy?
He's a rower. Look at those guns. I'm not. I'm cheering him on from the sideline.
Hurry up! I actually think that's really accurate, isn't it? And look, you've worked in both hospitality, and you're still in it, actually. Is it Double Puck?
Double Puck.
Double Puck.
And again, it's Double Puck.
In Bristol.
Whereabouts?
Two of the old Frisker sites. So one
I know.
by Temple Meads. And again, that's really key, right? Because we are not coming at this from like a climate activist sort of hair shirt crew that say the world's got to go vegan. We know what we're talking about, because we've grown ish. Who ultimately knows?
Yeah, that is very true.
We all know ish.
That's going on the YouTube show.
Anyone that says they know full stop is lying. So we know what we're talking about in terms of running a hospitality business. We can also see the challenge that hospitality is facing and the role that it has to play in this climate
And that
challenge.
must make a difference for you when you're talking to clients.
Huge,
customers.
man, because we're talking the same language.
Yeah, exactly that. I find that when I was in ops, drove me insane talking to people selling into me, and it's a bit of an arrogance actually in the industry. Operators we're like, oh, you don't know, man, you weren't there. You know, we've got this kind of Vietnam type approach to operations, and I think that you often resent people selling into you because. I don't know why. I think because you're just too busy. You know, but
there's truth in it though. You know, like if a tech bro comes and uses all the words and tells you how it all goes down, it's like, what do you know in Shoreditch?
You weren't there, man.
You know, you weren't there, man. Exactly. We were there, man.
I've done a double 4 days on the run. Yeah. Okay. Fine. And so you've worked in both industries. How do I get to that bit? Which are you enjoying more? Can you answer that? You're only young in tech. Shall I say that?
Yeah, young in tech, old dogs in hospitality, dead dogs in hospitality. Well, no, that's not true. We got double pass.
Staying in as well.
It's different, man. It's different chapters, you know. Chapter one was awesome. We had a great ride. We learned lots about growing a hospitality business. That we're really proud of the things that we did achieve. Back
great
then.
brand. I mean, genuinely great. I'm not saying because you're here. We loved it. I mean, I'm a Southwest boy.
Thank you.
Well, from Liverpool originally, but live in Cardiff. But and we were just sharing some employees that we've shared in the past.
Yeah,
sounds a bit weird.
So,
but some cracking people who work for both of us, and I think it's a great brand. Do you miss the cut and thrust of that though? Well, I suppose you're still getting it from Double Puck, are you? But are you not there? Are you there day to day?
yeah, well, I mean, we have lunch there every day. So it's horses for courses. We had a blast with Frisker. We're having a blast with Zedible. I think, if you want to kind of break it down into business speak, the impact that Zedible can have on the world is obviously far bigger
your
than
reach
Frisker.
is huge, right?
Reach is huge. Impact is huge. So, we are more motivated than we ever have been in terms of growing this thing.
And what
something
about
awesome?
Europe, States? Oh no, not trying to go too far down the road.
No.
But
we will.
The regulations, COP26, all that kind of.
It's all the same planet, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
is it being adopted differently?
In New York City, so the mayor just announced, I think, like a couple of weeks ago, I saw it flash up, that they want to have a 1/3 reduction across the city in terms of the food, CO2 from food. So like New York doing it, I'd say, probably the US is behind Europe and from a climate perspective, I think that's probably fair to say. So if you've got New York making a statement like that,
which would where you would expect it to come from, right?
Yeah. So I think that like you say, it's one planet. We're seeing it all over. We have had some conversations with some people from the Middle East, and they've got a massively ambitious plan by 2050 to be like net zero across all sectors and all industries. So I think it's going to come from everywhere, but we just really simply need to make a really great product that we can really demonstrate that impact and that ROI of using it. And then I think hopefully opportunities and growth will come from that.
Mm-hmm. And so if operators are listening and they want to have a chat and basically get engaged with you guys, where can they find you?
Zedible.io.
It's a great website. Love the little planet.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and our contact details are on there. And yeah, we'd love to hear from any of your listeners. Help them on that sort of journey towards a low carbon future.
Yeah, I love that. It's the navigation. I think you explained before, you were talking about you'd be the compass for their...
yeah, compass and map.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And what about LinkedIn? Are people allowed to contact you? I mean, I'll just do it anyway, I
That's
suppose.
the idea.
I don't think
No one talked to us on LinkedIn.
Closed loop.
well, you said your engagement was good on that article, so I just thought I'd try and help. Right, great. Well, that was fun. Look, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for coming on. Zedible.io is right for the website. Go and check it out. The guys are on the marketplace as well, so please go and look at them. And we're hosting some brunches down here, actually, and in Bristol in the next few months. So we'll give you a shout, and then you can meet the guys face to face then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.